What the Heck's your source for Warhammer Underworlds and under 30 Canadians racing south of their border and stealing all our prizes away. I'm your co-host, Davey. With me, I've got Brian today. How are you, Brian?
Sup. I'm doing well.
And we have a special guest today. One of said, G, you're here, and I don't know that you identify as Canadian. You said you are French originally, but you've been living in Canada for about 10 years. Am I remembering that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, welcome onto the podcast. We're glad to have you here. We are excited, and you are here specifically because when we were looking at the roster of lists, Phil and I did kind of a breakdown pre-Worlds, and we were really excited that someone took Siren Eye. So we want to talk to you about that. So that's that, and a kind of a broader overview of Worlds is what we'll be talking about today. So welcome aboard.
Well, thanks for the invite, guys.
Yeah, for sure. For context, we're recording on the 29th of November. We are expecting Daggok Stab Lads to be coming up sometime soon. They got previewed. You guys probably got to be in the room when it was being previewed. I don't know. You were there when it was getting talked about. So, but for folks who haven't, they can see it on the Warhammer community site. Not exactly sure when they'll drop, but one usually assumes pretty soon after they give that big of a reveal.
Yeah, excited for it. Mike finally gets another warband.
Yeah, Mike being our purely orc player. Hot takes from you guys based on what you've seen. What do you think, G?
I think they're interesting. The guy with the massive horn appeals to me the most, just in terms of miniature.
Yeah.
But they look like a fun warband in the vein of what the Cunning Crew was. Very, very cruel boys. So I'm excited to see the missing profile that we don't have yet, and what is exactly their objective deck.
Yeah, and they have their own plot card where they're was it plot traps? Schemes. Yeah, they come up with schemes and they get benefits for how many of those they pulled off. It's weird. It's like a gambit speed thing, but it stays hidden. So it's kind of like painting a middle ground. But when they come out, we'll have a chance to talk about them more. I thought the miniatures are cool. They didn't light my hair on fire, and that almost always means that it's a warband I'm going to play. For some reason, the warbands that I'm like, and then I see them in person, I'm like, no, actually, I love these, and I ended up playing them. So I hope so. I had a lot of fun with the Cunning Crew, so I hope these guys have some more of that trickery shenanigans going on. I'm sure they do.
Yeah, hopefully schemes work better than Loon Court's quests.
Yeah, we'll see. So normally we have done What the Heck is going on with you. That's kind of the topic of this whole episode, is to talk about what's been going on with you two guys. So before we get to that, we'll do community shout outs. Brian, did you have anything you wanted to shout out there?
Yeah, LVO is coming up. It'll be in January. Just still time to sign up for it. The What the Heck's crew will be rolling out in force. There's going to be at least 6 of us going. I think more like 8 or 9. And we're going to have... we're going to meet the Underworld's underground crew as well, face to face. Building a little self-promotion there. Sleek's Bowl challenged me to a pink slip match, and I was the only one dumb enough to sign up. So, for those who may not know that vernacular, that means they are. Why don't you lay out for us? What does it mean? Is playing for pink slips? I think it comes from underground street racing type stuff where you're essentially playing for the title or the deed to your vehicle. In this case, a painted warband. So We'll see who's the sucker. The winner will win a painted warband from the other, which is making me nervous just to think about. And I'm not even playing in it. So it's Vegas, baby. You got to gamble something.
You'll be our proxy for that. But what I've kind of told some folks, but it is. I don't know that I've said it on the podcast. I'll be going with you guys to LVO. This will be my first LVO. Adepticon, because of how it lands, is kind of tough for me to make it to the Clash in that. So this is my chance to be at a Clash. So I'm excited for that. And we got to make sure Derek doesn't steal our prizes again. So.
Yep. Got to meet him. Yeah. Formidable man.
Yeah. No doubt. I wanted to shout out BattleMallet. They already have an episode out with Zack Newcome where they talk about his experience at Worlds, and that was kind of cool. Zack Newcome, a name I know, a guy I played a bunch and just haven't interacted with a whole lot lately. I haven't been able to be online quite as much. it was really cool to hear him. He's one of the nicest guys in the world. So that was awesome.
Yeah, it was great I ran into so many people at Worlds where I was like, Zack Newcome uses his name on Discord. So it's like, I knew him immediately. Oh, yeah. Hello. Getting to meet those internet personalities that before I became a member of What the Heck's, heard a lot of chatter.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of folks like that at Worlds. It was an absolute Shark Tank, and it's what we're here to talk about.
Yeah. But first, we'd really like to kind of dig into G's experience. G, as a little bit of table setting, can you tell us a little bit about how long you've been playing Underworlds, what got you into Underworlds, and some of that setup before we get to your quest at Worlds here?
Yeah, so I've been playing since the beginning of Dire Chasm. So the way I went back into the hobby after a 15 years hiatus is COVID obviously took a lot of my usual hobbies, which are very outdoorsy, very sports oriented, and I was stuck at home, and there was only so many video games that I could play. So like, well, you know what? I'm going to tap into my childhood and teenage years again, and I'm going to buy some miniatures, a paintbrush, and get to painting. And I was, back in the day of Warhammer Fantasy Battle, a high health player and a Slaanesh player. And just as I was browsing Games Workshop, the Dire Chasm box immediately appealed to me.
Oh, perfect. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Lumineth and Slaanesh, like, okay, that's interesting. That's also, what I thought was a kind of one-off box game. I was like, okay, cool. So I can get to play with those miniatures, and ordered the box, got it in. First only for painting, and then I started looking at the rules, like, well, wait a minute. This game looks excellent. So I'm going to try to see if there's a community. And that's when all the online games were starting to ramp up, Vassal, but also the webcam games that were very popular at the time, the Straight Out of Shadespire,
right.
some of the groups in the UK as well.
Yeah.
They were doing a lot of webcam at the time. So that's how I started. I don't have much of a local meta, so that's still how I'm playing most of my games online. I really got into the game, got hooked up, and now I need my plastic crack every 1 or 2 months.
Welcome.
Yeah. So have you been pretty all in ever since Dire Chasm, would you say?
Oh yeah, so that's the only system that I play, so it makes things a little bit easier on the wallet and on the painting time. So I've purchased everything that got released since I started the game.
Awesome.
And I only have a 3 warbands pile of shame right now, so I'm trying to keep up to date as much as possible.
Oh man, I am an order of magnitude higher than that. Like I have probably 5 times that many, like, on my desk right now, unpainted. So hats off to you, sir. I need to figure my life out. Well, that's cool. So you qualified for Worlds. Oh, how did you get a Worlds slot?
So I went to the Alberta Classic. So you were talking about Derek. He's the one who's TOing the Alberta Classic. They have a very healthy group in Calgary. I would say Calgary and Vancouver are really the 2 hubs for Underworlds in Canada. And so I was like, well, it's not exactly my backyard, but it's still a 3-4 hours flight away. Maybe it's time to get out of my basement and off my computer a little bit and, show those models to people and just put them on a physical board. So when there, I played Ephelim, which at the time was the top dog. They're still pretty strong. So I got to qualify there. It was a great experience. I got to meet the Canadian players as well. Quite a few of them, as you've mentioned, also were at Worlds. So we kind of came there as a group. I was hesitating for a while. Should I declare for France or should I declare for Canada? Just in terms of, what's going to be best for the game in general. It was not really about me at the time. Like the decision was what's going to look better in terms of participation. And I heard there was another French player that was going to go, and I kind of wanted to be part of the group. It's an amazing group, and just being with those 5 other guys make the experience that much better. So I'm happy. I'm happy that that I declared for Canada in the end.
That's cool. So the Alberta Classic, was it Nemesis?
Yes.
And
yes.
what did you pair with your F1?
Fearsome Fortress at the time.
Okay.
So obviously there were quite a few FLMs. All of them were Seismic Shock. I still believe, and despite the fact that Cyril got to the final with Force of Frost, I still believe Fearsome Fortress to be probably the strongest deck for FLM. It's just more resilient. It's always going to, win by less, but still win. Whereas Seismic Shock, Force of Frost, you're very often going to blow your opponent, but sometimes they're going to blow you.
Sure. Yeah, you've got higher highs and lower lows, little more variance in them. Yeah. Well, you did not take FLM to Worlds. You took Siren Eyes, which is part of the reason you're on here. How far out from Worlds had you decided that you were bringing this warband, and what made you decide to bring them?
Okay, so about as soon as they got revealed, I was like, I want to play that warband. I'm going to see if it's possible, obviously, but it really started with the miniatures. I love the theme. I love the models. And I was like, okay, I'm excited for these miniatures in particular. What they showed at the time was, enough to say there's going to be an interesting ability, which is Hammer Tide. I'm sure we're gonna talk about it a little bit. And otherwise, I know you have a full episode on Siren Eyes, so I won't repeat what has been said there. But it's like, okay, that's an interesting, different way to play the game. So right from the release, I was like, okay, I'm gonna look at this one and just keep this one in mind. Like I had a list of maybe 4 or 5 warbands that I might bring. And later on, we had a few preparation meetings leading into Worlds. We had draft and then final versions of the rules package and how painting was going to be weighted. And I am not a extremely good painter, but I like to try to put some effort in my miniatures. And I was like, okay, I also kind of want to bring a warband that I have not painted yet, because this way I can put maximum effort and try to push myself in that aspect of the competition as well, just to get as much global points as possible and just embrace the experience completely, both on the playing aspect and on the painting aspect. So really, I was like, this fits the bill. Unfortunately, I had just painted my Domitan, so I was like, okay, I'm not going to bring, unfortunately, Domitan, because I kind of knew they were strong, especially after the release of Force of Frost. But it didn't matter much. I was like, okay, I found a warband that I really like. I'm really excited about. Let's see what they can do when they actually release, and if I get some success in practice games with them, then I'll bring them and I'll take the time to paint them. So obviously, I was looking at the time window, and I was like, okay, I got 3-4 weeks to paint them. It's probably enough for me. And then they got delayed. And I was starting to think, okay, how long are they going to be delayed for? If I can get my hands on them like just a week before Worlds, that's not enough to put the effort I want to put. So what I did is I called my sister that lives in Europe and said, what are you doing next Saturday? So what you're doing is going to Games Workshop, buying that box for me and shipping it. And she did. She went there. She grabbed the box on release and she put it in a mail. And DHL delivered a few days later. So I still had it about 3 weeks leading into the event.
Okay.
And I was able to, focus on the painting. Well, probably not as much as I would love to, but as much as time and life would allow me to.
With the time you did have, you still made to the second round of painting, so absolutely got a great amount of work in there.
Yeah, and I know that score reflects obviously the technical aspect and the choices, and I'm very happy with that. But a lot of people actually came to me and said they really like them. Just kind of got a few unofficial people's choices, so that's what made me really, really happy about the effort I put in and my painting choices. Like I knew that on the technical aspects, I couldn't compete with the very, very good and experienced painters. So Sylvester and Yuri that snatched first and second place. But just I was just happy to showcase the love I put in the miniatures, and people understood that, and I really loved it.
Well, yeah, because not only did you make it a second cut, but you buried the lead there that you got third place for best painted.
Yes.
So congrats.
Thank you.
That's cool. When you were in your preparation, so you're on this 3-week mission to get them painted, but at the same time, you're trying to figure out what to pair them with. It looks like, am I correct, Voidcursed Thralls is what you paired with?
Yes.
Was that a decision that you reached early on, or was there anything else in contention?
No. So the way I looked at the warband, so first we did a little bit of a deep analysis of it, and they have design issues. Let's face it, there's a few things that are not quite clicking from the start, and I think that's probably a warband that went through a lot of iterations. You can tell that some of their power deck in particular is probably expecting more fighters to be on 2 dodge, because there's a lot of guard tech in there. And when you look at their profiles, like, what am I going to do with guard tech when most of my fighters are on 1 block, and some of them inspired to 1 block artificially on guard. So I was like, okay, that's really nothing for me. So I think at some point a few changes to the profiles were made, and probably the power deck was already locked in at that point. So overall, if you look at the objectives, they're okay, but compared to what has been released recently, where we're in an era where each modern warband has at least 1 or 2 or 3 very easy surges, 1 or 2 very reliable to glory end phases, especially the top dogs. Like sometimes you feel like, okay, put miniatures on the board, surge 1 glory. So that's kind of what drags them behind a little bit. It's just like it's hard to get a fluid deck, especially in Nemesis, whereas the Domitans, the Athalims, obviously, X-Bane a little bit less, but still, like they still have a very, very fluid scoring, even in Nemesis, and that's what separates them from the other warbands. So upgrades you could work with. Objectives you had enough, but it was not really, really great, and gambits are terrible. That's unfortunately what makes it a little bit hard to play them, especially in Nemesis. Is in the gambit department, you've got 2 spells that are good. 1 spell that would be good if it was on 1 focus or 1 channel, and I don't understand why GW still wants to print 2 channel spells in warbands that don't have innates. So unfortunately, you cannot afford to competitively take that. So really, I was looking for a pairing that had enough objectives, a lot of good gambits, and a few good upgrades. So that kind of limits the pool a little bit. I know people try them with Fearsome Fortress. They don't have the staying power, I think, to play Fearsome Fortress. Right. Force of Frost is one serious contender, and I think they can be played with Force of Frost as well. It's probably easier to play. Like if you're listening to this and having some local tournaments you want to have fun with, Force of Frost is a good option. You can do fun stuff with Stranglehold and the Squid. You have more spells that are useful for Saranai, but I landed in the end on Voidcursed because it kind of plugged the holes that I had identified in a warband. That, well, you want to take the Voidcursed package. That's quite a few gambits that you can take. Plus, there is on top of that very few repositioning gambits in Nemesis, and Voidcursed has quite a lot of these. Same thing with the repositioning upgrades, and all of this is strong with Saranai. Because, and we're going to talk about this, you want to be in line. You want to play chess, you want to play diagonals, you want to play rooks. So yeah. Saranai is a rook on the long board, or Saranai is a bishop on the on the square board, right? If you talk in chess terms. And every out of sequence repositioning that you could put with her is going to help you further your game plan. So obviously she cannot really benefit from the Voidcursed ones, but because you don't want her to be Voidcursed, because you want her to be able to use her hammer tide.
Right.
But she can benefit from the upgrades that do not require Voidcursed. The refashion reactions, refashion priorities. So like all of this blend together kind of made me pick Voidcursed as a pairing. It was also, going to put caster warbands in a more uncomfortable position. If you know your Athelame, if you know your Domitan, and you're playing into Voidcursed, then tokens are off limits for you to avoid being Voidcursed yourself.
You're worrying about the snare.
Reshaping snare. Yeah. Absolutely. So
until you see that, you can't. It's risky to go on to those objectives.
Yeah.
Yes, and just in general, it gives more, pressure. It puts more pressure on your opponent in their positioning, in the way they have to think, and that's also kind of what is the strength of Saranai, is it throws opponents off of their game plan. You cannot really compete like head to head with a lot of the strong warbands, so you have to play more KG, you have to deny more, you have to play their deck almost as much as yours, and Voidcursed is the one that allows you to do that the best, just because you have a few more uninteractive objectives in unseizing imperatives and unwitting guardians, so that's all Voidcursed have move or charge, or a Voidcursed fighter is on the fear token. So all this kind of put this blend together of I can stay back, and I want to stay back as long as possible until I pull the trigger, and I have the cards to support that. So that's how I landed on that pairing.
Yeah, really cool. You mentioned having to basically play against the opponent's deck and control. It sounds like control play. Out of interest, how many practice games did you get with this pairing with Saranai? And then, like, before this, how familiar were you with Voidcursed? Were you playing Voidcursed a lot? Just kind of curious from a outside perspective on like what it takes to take a brand new fresh warband and play at this level.
Yes, so I did play Voidcursed a lot before. I played against it a lot as well. I know that some metas completely embraced Voidcursed. Some of them are a little bit more cold on it. It's a deck that I really love. I'm more of a position player than a dice player, so
yes,
I don't think I've had a game with Tooth and Claw. Just because I understand why it is strong, but that's not the style of play that appeals to me. I will always try to, play the warband and or the deck that gives me more shenanigans, more options rather than raw stats. And so I was quite familiar with Voidcursed to begin with, and like the mistake that some people do thinking of Voidcursed is, oh well, I've got one or two fighters that I absolutely don't want Voidcursed, so I cannot play that deck. And that's the case with Saranai. You never want to Voidcursed Saranai, obviously, but the other three, you have really no problem getting them Voidcursed. And we've also seen that in Hexbane, where two players at Worlds brought Voidcursed Hexbane,
Yeah.
which is also a strong pairing. And the same thing, like you never want Puck to be Voidcursed, you never want
Hexbane himself.
Hexbane himself, and you probably want to avoid Bridges as well. So that's already half of your warband that you don't want Voidcursed, but still it's a pairing that works just because of positioning options on top of positioning options that Hexbane already has. So yeah, I was quite familiar with the deck to begin with. Obviously the warband, not so much. Nobody was at that time.
Yeah, how many games did you get to play with the two?
So I played quite a few games before, like finalizing the pairing. So I'd say that I'd have like a 6 or 7, 8 kind of test games with different things. My first idea was Path of Prophecy, by the way, which work and doesn't work. You're a little bit too dependent on draw order and objectives that you get in your territory because you have to get into those numbered, and you don't have enough to take the upgrades and to manipulate the numbers. So it was a little bit too reliant on draw. But in terms of power deck, that was the best. You just can't score enough to keep up with the glory engines that the most modern strong warbands have, or like big semi-older warbands like Headcrack also have in terms of scoring. So even if you're outplaying them, eventually they're going to outscore you. So that's why Path of Prophecy was cut. But in terms of power deck, that was working extremely well. When you had the correct numbers to match the objective you had in hand, you were unstoppable. But that's just too unreliable.
Yeah.
So that was probably 6, 7 games, getting to know the warband and test stuff around. And once I decided I was going to play Voidcursed, I tried to play as much as possible. Probably, in the realm of 15, 20 games against opponents of various level. I was just like trying to grab every game I could on Vassal when I was available, which was not always easy because I'm also a father. So usually my games go after bedtime, and after bedtime in North America, you're in the middle of the night for European players. So it's not always easy, but probably put in 15 to 20 games once I had the pairing. I also did a lot of simulations, especially with board placements, because that's the other aspect that's extremely important with Saranai is we haven't said the big L word yet, but longboard, right? Saranai want to longboard, and that was also the thing is in a best of 3 Nemesis, you're guaranteed to have at least one longboard, and you cannot afford to lose it. Because if you're losing the one longboard that you have, there's very high chance that you've lost the match. So I spent a lot of times checking every possible board and what would be my answer against, every board that the opponent could give me first.
Nice.
I mapped everything. I came up with a number system as well, just to make it a little bit clearer. And then I practiced with it, learned it, so I can tell you that, for example, the Shattered Tower is a 2/4 in my number system, and that's the lane where I want to put my opponent starting hexes, so that they can be in line with Saranai. So that's how I approached the prep as well. As I'm going to try to get serious on my board placement, so I don't use any brain power on board placement when I'm at the event itself.
Yeah, that's really smart. Oh, there's just so many boards now that it's really easy to kind of get lost if you don't have some sort of shortcut. If you're just, I found it just at casual nights. I'm going to set 4 on the top, and I will make myself pick from those 4 rather than go through for the perfect one, just to get some experience with different boards. But I think that was really, really a clever approach.
Yeah. And obviously, usually what your opponent's going to give you. There's only a few handful of boards that are good against longboards. So with the level of opponent that I was expecting, I knew kind of they're going to give me this one or this one or this one, and it didn't fail. So I was prepared mostly against these ones, and in general, like I had obviously thought about my first board when I had to place it, and I had 2 or 3 options depending on what I thought the opponent would do, and then obviously when they were placing the first board, I had 6 options. I used mostly 3 of them, and one was really in response to the Tendon Hollows, which is a weird board that kind of is all over the place. Is the one where there's staggers everywhere and the starting X's everywhere as well.
Just a total mess. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and that's interesting because you're talking about, you're talking about a level of player where anyone playing against you should probably be expecting to get longboarded. And so if they've been doing their prep, are prepared to present a board. Like you said, you're expecting to see a set number of boards because those are what people should place if they're expecting to be longboarded. The only thing worse than getting longboarded is getting longboarded and not seeing it coming, because then you can really get set back. But when you're at Worlds, you're less likely to run into, less likely to be able to catch somebody out with that.
Out of curiosity, though, did anybody longboard you?
Yuri did.
Oh.
Yuri longboarded me, and I was
Domitans?
Yes, he was playing Domitan, but with seismic shock. So I think the longboard is his comfort zone. He didn't really, I think, stop to think about who I was playing, and it's just stayed into what worked for him in the past. So I won that particular game. So by the way, if you don't have it in the records, it's because I played as a substitute in the last game. That's why I ended up playing against Yuri. But yeah, that's the only player that longboarded me. It was still a close game. I mean, Domitan is quite strong against Saranai and quite strong against that deck in particular. Obviously, just by pure staying power and capacity to score and do a lot of damage, but also the Sarpon Inspire reaction, which gives you a free push every round, is something that hurts Saranai a lot, because you inspire Sarpon, you move a fighter out of the Saranai's line, and that's in general every warband that has out of sequence moves or out of sequence pushes is gonna bother me a little bit. So FLM at the beginning of the round, if they have still 4 changers, they can push one away from the line. Obviously, Hexbane has multi moves that helps them a bit as well. So there's give and take. I still think Saranai is strong into Hexbane, and Saranai does decently into FLM, but they have option to counter you as well.
Before we get too much further, I was going to talk to you a little bit about deck construction. You talked about your gambits being something that needs shoring up. And I know that Voidcursed, every time I make a Voidcursed deck, there's at least 5 that I'm usually like, yep, I can easily take 5 from there. And often a couple more like maybe not in there. With objectives, though, that's often where I have to really make some hard decisions. How much of the did you end up reaching for Reshaped Realm or Uncounted Cost or Tipping Point, those ones that really are looking to just lay out a ton of Void Curse, or were you trying to not lean that hard into the Void Curse mechanic with your deck?
So yes and no is the answer. Kind of a blend of this. Obviously, Surrendered Will and Involuntary Interdiction for the Surges side are, I mean, I wouldn't say auto-includes, because some warbands that have very strong Surges can afford to do without, but when 3 of your Surges option are kill Surges and on the Saranai deck, and you're trying to play KG, you have a little bit of a problem there. So obviously going into the Voidcursed package, Surrendered Will and Involuntary Interdiction are very strong because your opponent can score them for you. I mean, surrendered will, the only way you can score it if the opponents actually is Voidcursed.
Yeah.
In terms of end phases, I already mentioned Uncounted Cost and Unwitting Guardians.
Yep.
Sorry, Unceasing Imperatives and Unwitting Guardians. So
Yep.
what you do with your own Voidcurse. And I did play into Uncounted Cost because I was expecting to die eventually. That's something that you should be scoring in the end, just
Sure.
because you die, they die. That's the nature of the game. It gives you that, pure carnage light, if you will.
Yeah.
So I don't think I've ever not scored it unless it was in my hand in the first round and I ditched it.
Yeah.
But in the third round, I don't think there's ever been a game where Uncounted Cost was not in a situation to be scored.
And often, whichever fighter you Void Cursed is all of a sudden the easiest fighter to take down because you've locked their, unless they're going over the top with like Armor of Ice, you've set their defense to one block, which is often a downgrade from whatever else they might have had. So that makes sense.
Yeah, so the Void Cursed fighter on their side is usually easier to kill, but also depending on what I had in hand at the time, I would make my own Voidcursed fighter a very incentivized target, just so if someone dies, it's this one, and that's good because that advances that game plan. In the next round, I can Voidcurse another fighter. Obviously, I wouldn't do that if I only had Siren left after, but
Yeah.
that rarely happens. Like it's, I don't think I've had 2 Voidcurse Siren more than once in the third round.
Well, we spent our last episode kind of looking at what warbands were coming, and then we'll talk a little bit about some of the pairings here. You were kind of operating with some similar info, maybe a little bit insight into what your teammates were bringing, but you knew that there were 2 Domitans, there were 3 Ephilims, there was a slew of Hexbane, Gnarl Spirit Pack was there in force, and then there was some scattershot of some other things like, Mollog, Headcracker, Crimson Court. So Gore Chosen was in there too. Looking at that setup, and perhaps before you knew what people were pairing with, was there any of those warbands that you're like, I'm worried to go against this, or I'm relieved that they're not even represented here?
Yeah, so Domitan, obviously, as soon as Death Gorge dropped, I think every experienced player knew that Force of Frost Domitan was going to be a problem, mostly because of Avalanche, but not only. It's just the deck just gives them too much. They were already a strong warband, not particularly imbalanced in Nemesis. I know they're a problem in Championship, but they were fine, in my view, in Nemesis. Force of Frost made them very problematic, for sure. So there was that. Then I would say Gore Chosen and Headcracker were the other 2 that were worrying me a little bit. Gore Chosen just because having only 3 fighters against me means they don't really have to stand in line with Sarenai. And also, even if they do, well, it's going to take a lot of activations to bring them down. That's the one thing with the Warband, is it's really great to not roll dice and do damage, but it works very well to bring down 2 or 3 wound fighters when you start to get into the 4, 5, 6 wounds realm. It's just not working.
The Gore Hulk will probably happily take 1 auto damage in exchange for a Blood Tithe.
Exactly. You inspire them for free. You're tickling them. They have a lot of heals. So like the game against Willie, who was playing Gore Chosen, was a stressful one, and I think the only one that I could have never won. All the others, I even if it was an uphill battle, I had chances. I think against Willie, I had none. The other one that was worrying me, and for good reason, was Headcracker, just because Headcracker scores a lot in Nemesis. They're an extremely strong warband, and I knew, because I saw his prep, and I saw in some of his practice games, that Val was going to bring Breakneck Slaughter, and that just means he reaches me everywhere. and that's what I want to avoid in the first place. So I did good into North Spirit Pack and Crimson Court. I was expecting that a little bit, just because only Sarakar has that insane reach. All the others, they have to get to you,
Mm-hmm.
and they get pinged heavily on the way.
Mm.
But Headcracker, same thing. We're in that conundrum of having 4 wounds per fighter. They also have Thick Hide, which is an insane counter to Saranai, because obviously if they take 1 damage, they take 0. That's really, really hard to handle.
Yeah.
So I could have won the game against Val, but I would have needed way more than average dice, like really lucky dice.
Mm-hmm.
Jan, Willie, there was really nothing I could have done, because his deck was also quite passive, so I could not even out-passive him. so if it was kind of a damn if I do, damn if I don't. I either throw myself into the loving arms of the Gore Hulk, or I just stay in the back and they laugh at me from within 1x of no man's land.
Yeah, I got to play a little bit with Val leading up, and that was kind of the first I saw of the Breakneck Slaughter. Really, some of the stuff it could do, I was pretty impressed. I did him a little dirty there, because I was trying to help him have ideas on what to try against, and I helped him practice into Soul Raid, and there was no Soul Raid there. And then I'm still going to try and follow up and get his thoughts. My intention was to do it before this episode, but did not come together. So, but interested in some of his take, because he was another one-of-a-kind warband there. He was the only Headcracker and the only Breakneck Slaughter, which was kind of cool too. So
yeah, I'm actually surprised. Like, I was expecting more Headcrackers, just because.
Right.
I mean, they're really, really strong. Like they have like primacy. You know, they're the only warband that can play primacy, and good luck taking it away from them in Nemesis. Like maybe you do it once when you kill Headcracker, and that's about it.
Yeah.
So they just have this free 2 or 3 glory per round. They have the Great Hunters, that is extremely hard to deny as well. Like you can expect them to bomb you with 5 glory in the 3rd hand phase, and like they're a really, really strong warband. I think Breakneck was a great counter against my particular playstyle. I would expect more to see them on Daring Delvers or Fearsome Fortress, or even Force of Frost, just for a more reliability, because with Breakneck Slaughter, you're still exposing yourself to being popped.
Yeah.
And and Mad Mob actually have this capacity of also outpassing a lot of warbands, but not if you're playing Breakneck Slaughter. So still, like Val beat me fair and square. Like that was actually my first game of the tournament. I was like, okay, I hope the other ones are going better, because that was really, really hard to just. We traded blow for blow, but in the end, the scoring is just too hard to handle.
So you there were 5 matches for the opening round. Do I have that correct? And then they would do a top 8 cut.
So what was funny here is, and G actually had a better comprehension of the whole tournament bracket system, because than we did. We thought we had it, and then he made a correction of ours. But it started out with 2 pools of play, so the players were split up into 2 equal pools of numbers wise, and basically they got paired off against each other in order to determine the top 8, the top 4 from 2 pools, I believe. Basically, one of the things to clarify is everybody was playing for world points, or their country points. So when people were paired off against each other, they tried not to pair against somebody they'd already played against, obviously. But if everything else was equal, they would try not to pair you against a countryman. It would have to be an extreme tie in order to pair up against a countryman, so that you weren't denying each other country points. But yes, 2 rounds first day. It was 4-hour rounds each. the idea behind that was people are flying internationally, jet lag, language barriers, all sorts of reason to give people ample amounts of time. It's also the larger game systems are going on at the same time. So 2 rounds the first day, 3-hour rounds the second day, 3 rounds on the second day.
Yeah, so I just wanted to actually expand on the apartheid on the event in general and the scoring system for country. I think it was amazing. I don't have particularly strong feelings for or against Games Workshop. I know it's a very divisive company. I really don't buy into the drama, but on that particular event, I think it was great what Mike and his team put together was really amazing, enjoyable experience. So I invite everyone to try to qualify for next year, run qualifiers, apply for spots, get out there because we want more players there. It was really, really great event.
Hell yeah.
So you played your 5 and then you made it into the top 8. Is that correct?
Yes. So I ended up with a record of 3-2, and I just got in on tiebreakers, ironically, over Val.
Oh no!
Which I know he felt bad about, and I do feel bad about a little bit as well, because he beat me in our head-to-head, right? But it was clear in the rules from the start that the first tiebreaker is the strength of schedule, and because I had to play against a man who went undefeated, I had a better strength of schedule than him in the end, so that's why I qualified over him.
And then launched into that top bracket. And how did the top bracket go for you?
So I started playing against Mark, which is Bacon-born from Path to Glory, and he was playing Voidcursed as well, Voidcursed Hexbane. As I mentioned before, I think my deck was good against Hexbane. And I ended up winning that first game. Got into a match against Cyril, who was the Ephelim Force of Frost player, and ended up losing that game, which is the match I'm the most bitter about, because it really came down to the very, very last dice roll.
Oh.
He needed a crit with Spawnmo on 3 dice. To do 3 damage with Grievous and kill me and win the game, and he got crit hammer. So there was nothing I could do. Brutal. So it's fine. At the end of the day, we're playing still a dice game. Even if my warband and my playstyle tries to avoid that as much as possible, that's something you accept going into the game. That some dice rolls are going to go your way and some are not. And this time it did not, unfortunately. And it stings a little bit because that would have also gotten me best overall. That one extra game win. I ended up second on best overall, just behind Derek. So obviously, if I win one more game, it gives me best overall, which would have been cool. But in the end, let's say that I put myself in a position to lose by a dice roll. Then next time I need to not be in that position, and then that dice roll is not going to matter.
That's a good way to think of it.
Yep, and the third game after that in the championship bracket, which was like, this put me on the redemption path, and on my redemption path, I ran into Willie and his Court Chosen. So as I said, it was the one game that I know there was nothing I could do really. So no regrets. I am very glad to have cracked the top 8 to begin with. That was kind of my, first goal in terms of games, is I just make it there and see what happens. I'm also happy that I got to play against Mark and beat him, because I think he's an amazing player. Like in terms of over the board, I think it's hard to be better than Mark. So I'm happy that I prevailed in our duel.
Mm-hmm.
It's just overall really happy to make it this far in the tournament, and with a warband that was quite new, and also like admittedly in objective value not a top tier warband. Like they're not bad, but they're not up there with what we would consider the top dogs in Nemesis right now. It's like Domitan, Nephilim, Headcracker, Nar Spirit Pack, Hexbane. That would be my top 5.
Yeah, can't argue with that. There's good choices all throughout. That's an awesome result. So if I am remembering all your accolades correctly, you had 3rd in painting, you were 2nd overall, and you were part of the Canadian team which won the event. Aman won the single player best general, but I think as a team, I think the Canadians walked away with the Underworlds.
Yeah, so they were tracking what country did best in each system. So 40K AOS and Kill Team and Underworlds. And so Canada did track for best Underworlds because they had 6 players, but also their performance. Everybody's
so you're like, so I'm going to stop here because having more players helped having more chances. But it did not help us accumulate more points in the end. So it's really the results. As I said, we got 1st and 2nd on best overall, and we got 2nd and 3rd on painting, and that's what allowed us to get over even like the deficit of not being the best general, which USA got through Aman. Because we really performed well in all the other categories that are also pretty important in their scoring system.
Right. Yeah, it was a really robust like tournament system in the way that they represented everything. It's hard to comprehend everything at the start, trying to understand it all. They did also award best in factions, which they split it up by every single warband. Originally, it was kind of knee jerk. We were like, why didn't they do by Grand Alliance? But I think like I had a couple conversations with the players and we're like, no, we actually like that better because it makes a more diverse field. So you also got best in faction Siren Eyes.
I did, absolutely, yes.
Yeah. And it was fun. And that happened too in some of the other systems. Somebody who was the only person to bring that faction got best in that faction at the event. But like you said, the more players that you had for the country representing gave you more opportunities to score for your country. Because painting and which faction you chose and your performance all went into that for scores and what you were contributing. I thought it was a fantastic system. It was cool to see it shake out. Some confusion, but as it shook out, everybody's like, yeah, this is great.
Yeah, no, I agree. And obviously, I lived it from the inside. I hope that on the outside, it helped create some hype. I hope that, Games Workshop was able to broadcast it and create some country rivalries and in their coverage. Unfortunately, we didn't get a lot of Underworld's coverage on the mainstream, but that's also understandable. That's their smallest system at the events. I'm already grateful that we were there.
Yeah.
And just this is the type of thing that GW should do. This really looked like a major company hyping their products. And we sometimes complain about them not doing this type of things. Well, now they did, and they did it well.
Yeah, I had a moment like we were so as I was working, we were so busy all the time. I did manage to steal a moment to ask Mike, is this running smoother? Or is this about what you expected? He's like, no, this is running smooth. Like, this is great. I'm having a great time. And I was like, perfect. Hell yeah.
Brian, I think it'd be a good moment now before we kind of do some wrap up overall thoughts. In case folks didn't listen to the last one or are not aware, you were there as a judge. Our podcast got contacted and asked if we would be able to provide somebody, and we we were fortunate to have somebody that we could send, and that was you. So you kind of helped run that event. I was just going to toss it over to you. You've kind of shared some along the way, but any thoughts you want to share about the kind of overall how things ran, or your perspective from, kind of the outside, but also kind of the inside? You were there all throughout it.
I could fill an entire episode on my own. So I tried to jot something down so that I wouldn't ramble. So forgive me. I'm just going to try and stick to my script. So for context, our crew is presented with the opportunity for one of us to act as Underworld's judge at the World Championship of Warhammer. I just so happen to be available, and my wife is awesome. That's not a husband having to say those words. She saw how awesome.
She probably doesn't listen, so it's fine.
No, she saw how awesome the opportunity was, and she's like, "Heck yeah, go do it." So once I was given the title of like being a judge, ran one of our local events, and once I got that title, it just found my outlook on the game shifted for the better. Viewing the game as a shared experience suddenly became the most paramount thing in my mind, and all my games since have been making that experience as good as possible for both players. Personally, I wanted to make sure that the first Worlds event for Warhammer, and particularly Underworlds, went smoothly and without controversy, so that there would be more in the events in the future. There was no guarantee that this was going to be a success, and we wanted to make sure this went off without a hitch. It was a privilege to be able to assist the events team that had been working for years in building up to such a finale, and I dare say they crushed it. My favorite part was helping to facilitate those shared experiences in this game that we love at the highest level. Interacting with each player at the event just further expanded my awareness of this awesome global community that we have in Underworlds. As much as I thought I got enough time to talk to each participant, I now wish I had more. I wish we had the forethought to take a photo of all of the participants in the event. But I am thankful that Amon had the presence of mind to get a photo that we do have of the top 8 participants. So I want to share that on some of the Discords here. And I want to extend an invite to those participants that I haven't yet connected with on Discord to message me or friend me on Discord so that we can keep in touch. I really want to see how these local events I want to see how this next Worlds grows throughout the year. I want to see people at local events. I talked with Sebastian. I'm going off script now. I talked with Sebastian, and he said that they had an event in Poland with 70 some players. I'm like, you're kidding me. And he's like, no, 70. I was like, get them over here. Let's do this. Let's get more tickets over to Poland. Team France had an awesome representation at the event. They had jerseys and they were super organized. They had a huge team photo. It was really cool to see. Cyril was part of that. And that was really cool. I want to see more teams, more countries coming over. Back on script. But yeah, so I want to extend the invite to friend me and message me on Discord. I want to see this next year growing up. I think we've only scratched the surface on the talent of Underworlds. Everybody was saying how they had talent back home, 70 some players in Poland, etc. And I want to see that realized at next year's World Championship of Warhammer 2024 Underworlds event. So excited. I'm just buzzing. I could keep going, but I'm going to keep it at that.
Fair enough. Well, so it sounds like a good experience as a player, good experience as a judge.
I do want to thank. I did have another judge there with me. It wasn't all me. I had John was helping me. He helped me on some of the finer things on the event as a whole and judging and best practices. So, thank you, John.
And I think as a player, I can also thank you both, because without judges, the event is not happening, or at least not happening smoothly. That's for sure. That's also something I'm a bit sensitive about, because I'm a referee myself in my sports, which is rugby. So I know a good judge when I see one, and both of you are amazing. I think the participants were also amazing, like a amazing display of sportsmanship from everyone. But having an event with so much exposure run that smoothly, that says a lot about the work you guys did. So thank you.
Thank you so much, G. I was happy to make rulings, which I get flack, rightfully so, on this podcast for Read the Card, Brian. So when I was the one that was available, I was like, oh, really? Why me? But yeah, it also, I think, spoke to how humble this community can be, because like these are the top players and they were asking me to make rulings on things. And I'm like, you know how this works. He's like, I just want to make sure I'm not screwing my opponent over. Like, I'm like, no, that's in the rules. You know it. And the other guy's like, yeah, you can do that to me. So it was a great time overall. I loved it.
Well, I just want to take a little bit of time before we wrap things up to talk about kind of the takeaway. Having seen all that in action, we made some predictions. We made some guesses about pairings. One of the predictions I'm happy we were able to make is we I think Phil and I sort of figured that Domitan Force of Frost was the combo to beat. I might have even used the words degenerate when talking about which is not to take anything away from Amon. I think he like recognized that. If I had been attending, I don't know that I had recognized just how substantial it was until a little bit closer to. G, you mentioned that a lot of experienced players spotted it out of the gate.
Yeah, no, it's a world championship, so you got to bring the heat. And I respect people trying to take off takes or counter takes. I mean, G here had the dark horse. You don't think that somebody's going to be able to bring the brand new fresh warband and perform so well, but that's why we're talking, because that's a really cool pick.
Yeah. But I guess I wanted to pass it around and give folks a chance to give some thoughts on the state of Nemesis. And we're talking at kind of the highest competitive level. I think, Brian, what you and I often see here locally is that we have enough players that are really casual or like, I just want to do something fun, that we're not always exposed to like that bleeding edge of the most vicious combinations. And this is obviously the place where you can and should try to bring that stuff. What thoughts do you guys have at this very high level of competition where people are bringing the sharpest knife they can bring?
So I'll start by congratulating Amon on his well-deserved win, and the fact that he is playing Domitan with Force of Frost is what a strong player should do. Like, if you want to win an event, you bring what you think is the strongest and you play it to perfection. And this is what he did. He brought what he thought was strongest and he played it to perfection. So he won, and congratulations on that. He did have a huge scare against Willie, because Willie's deck was really geared against Domitan Force of Frost. That was the entire thing. The principles that worked against my deck also worked against Domitan, as in, I think his deck could outpassive Domitan, so Domitan had to come to the Warhawk, and they are still, only 4 wounds, 5 if Domitan himself is inspired, and the Gorehurl can very, very easily get to 4 damage with Tooth and Claw and to an unmanageable amount of dice. So I didn't see the game. I was playing a game of my own, obviously, but I know that Amon came really, really, really close to losing that match against Willie, and he told me that he was really, really happy that Willie got taken out of the tournament by an Athelem, which, his deck works less against, because that's definitely a final that could have gone either way, and maybe probably easily in the way of Willie. So props on him for identifying what is the absolute strongest answer to what people thought was the absolute strongest pairing. I think that the Voidcursed Hexbane was also an attempt at that, but it didn't work as well as what Willie brought.
Yeah, I got to see Amon sweat a few times, which is fun to see, especially when he was running undefeated. It's like, dude, you're good. You're doing good. Like, it's fun to see you sweat now. Willie and Sebastian both made him really sweat, and that was fun. But yeah, he brought the heat, played with the sharpest knife, and played it to perfection. But yeah, it was great.
I had a question put to both of you here regarding this. spread of warbands. In my head, when I was thinking about it, I was like, man, it was all elite warbands. Like, well, that's not entirely true. There was, there's a 5-count warband with Ephelum, and there's a 6-count with Hexbane. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, so why do I have that in my head? And I was like, well, it's because there's none of these warbands. Some people here or there are interested in holding objectives, but nobody's going like a full like Sepulchral Guard or Grimwatch style. Like, hey, I really want to hold a lot of objectives. And I know, is that only because of Avalanche, or is there more at play there, do you think? And is that a problem, or is that just a fluctuation in your guys' minds?
So I can take this one. I think there's a double problem with more horde-oriented warbands in Nemesis. Is that, first of all, you probably don't have enough end phase glory to counteract your glory bleed, and the other point is you're paying the glory tax twice, because in Nemesis you will have more often a kill surge, just because you have to dig a little bit deeper in the pool, and experienced players don't like kill surge in general, just because you have to have the card in the hand at the time you make a kill that meets the condition. So if you're playing championship, you're barely taking a kill surge unless it's kill a fighter, and that's it. In Nemesis, usually you have to dig deeper, and you end up with one or two of these. And having easier to kill fighters means that you're also not only giving away more glory, but helping your opponent just get his deck rolling. There's also more fighters out of action and phase objectives that you have to take in Nemesis. So you're really being punished twice for bringing 2 wounds fighters. So only really Hexbane, which are otherwise extremely strong, really afford to bring 2 wounds fighters. I would say that FLM has a few of these, but they're kind of artificially 2 wounds, because even Spindle Finger takes one extra to be brought down. So Avalanche obviously exacerbates that. A fun pairing that can work and do a lot of good work would be Griselle with Breakneck Slaughter. But if you're expecting to run into Avalanche, that's just unplayable.
Yeah. I think one of the other things I was noticing is as we get more changes to the charged out rule, those elite warbands, those smaller fighter warbands, can really leverage it. I played against Phil. He was running the Storm Coven Force of Frost, and I was like, man, these guys don't hardly even care that they've all charged. Like, they're still operating at almost full efficiency, and those bigger warbands can't really get to that.
Yeah, there was only 2 Force of Frost decks present, so Avalanche was definitely a threat. But I think G's point is much more fundamental to it.
Yeah, like the charge out rule is great to give you more things to do and not having a dead activation 3 and 4 where you're just drawing power cards or cycling objectives. It's good for the dynamics of the game for sure, but it has made elite warbands stronger, and especially when they got range, and especially when they don't have 5 wounds, so they don't give away 2 glory. So this is no surprise that strong warbands right now are 4x4. Like at some point in the history of the game, 4x4 were the standard, and then they started to drop in favor of hordes and or big boys, and now we're back in that space where 4 fighters, 4 warbands are like more recently sometimes variations of that with a little bit less wounds or 1 less fighter, but they're Stormcast and they have amazing range. Just makes it that you always have options, even if you have 1 or 2 fighters left and you're not giving away glory. So yeah, it's Avalanche is increasing the problem, but I think even before Force of Frost we were seeing that change towards more elite that does not get large.
All right. Well, I think we'd be remiss if we did not at least run down, acknowledge some of the winners? We kind of talked about them in passing, but Brian, do you think you could hit through some of the award winners for the event?
Yeah, so I did manage to. They had an awesome award ceremony. In fact, I want to talk a little bit about after this about the year going forward or the next year. But I do have the awards here just for Underworlds. They awarded gold, silver, bronze for best in faction. So, like we said, G here has gold for best in faction Siren Eye. I'm going to go through. Steven got gold for Ephelim and Ricardo got silver. Crimson Court, Carol got gold. Zack Newcome got silver. Mollog, Christine got gold. Headcrackers, Valentin got gold. Domatan, Stormcoven, Amon got gold. Yuri got silver. And then Hexbane, Mark got gold. Sylvester got silver. David, bronze. Gorechosen, Willie got gold. And Gnarl Spirit, Sebastian got gold. Derek got silver. And Damien got bronze. Then, so after the 2 days of pool play and the players got split up into the top 8 and then the lower 10 would have the world's bracket, they did track those, and those results did ultimately go towards their performance, which led to overall points. But for the bracket, Derek from Canada, Captain Murder, got first place in the world's bracket. Second place was Carol. Third place was Val. In paint, Sylvester got gold, Yuri got silver, and G got bronze. And then best overall for paint and performance, Derek, Captain Murder, got gold. G got second with silver, and Cyril got third with bronze. And then for our best general, just game performance purely, Amon obviously took podium. He is our world champion. Cyril, his opponent in the final, got silver, and Steven got third. So congrats to all of our winners. It was really great event to be a part of, and the award ceremony was fun. Brief note, we were the smallest event, so we were the first awards to be awarded. It was a bit hectic because it went late with 3 death matches in the other game systems. Underworlds wrapped up first. And Derek here, I don't think anybody realized how many prizes that were going to be given out. Derek got a little tipsy, and when he got best overall, he lost his mind, and he charged Mike and bear hugged him, picked him up. I don't know what it is with you Canadians and rugby, but Derek, a rugby player, just picked up Mike Brandt and just shook him, and he was so excited. Got his award. Mike's like, if any of you are going to match that energy, don't. I peed a little or something like that. Great energy. The whole room was awesome. And then Mike dropped some crazy big reveals on us that, what was it? The top 8 of each game systems event qualified for the following year. So G here, you're in for next year.
I am.
Yeah. I only just learned of that development a couple days ago, talking to someone else in that top 8, and that's super cool. I like that there's guaranteed some continuity between them.
Yeah, it's going to be neat, but there's more on top of that. And all of this, I haven't seen a Warcom article totally detailing all this, but I also haven't ran through the entire blog. I was living through the blog while the event was going on, so I should go through with a fine-tooth comb and see what is or hasn't been said. But the other reveal was that the best general and best overall for each of the game systems would get an entire year worth of free content for their system.
Whoa. Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Which I don't know how they're handling that for 40K and AOS, because that's a lot. But for Underworlds, both of the recipients of that said that they were going to take that and use that to grow their locals. So, yeah, excited.
So you remember when I said I wasn't salty about that dice roll against Cyril? That made me reconsider it a little bit. But yeah, not just about the top 8 making the qualification for next year. Well, first of all, that's great because it kind of hints at the fact that there is going to be a year 2, and I think that's amazing. But also, it opens up spots because we're still going to go to events, but maybe we're not going to try hard as much. And even if we do win, then the runner-up is going to get the qualifier.
Yeah.
And that will just I would say like the event was almost perfect, and I think the only thing he was maybe missing is a little bit more players, and I know that's going to sting some listeners that probably would have hoped to be there. So that's why I'm saying just let's go to qualifiers, let's run events. We were the smaller system. We're probably going to continue to be, but we can grow. Like we have a very, very tight community. We're almost all internet friends. And I'm sure that we're not going to dilute the quality if we get up to 32 players for next year.
Absolutely.
Like, we can larger than that. I don't know if we can support top play for a larger amount than 32, but 32 players, I'm sure there's 20 more players out there that could beat me. No problem.
Oh, gee, I've got faith. I think we can snowball this thing. I think we can absolutely roll it. The venue that this was held at is also known for hosting Dragon Con, and it's a chain of 3 hotels all connected. And I think it just means that where the event was, we were occupying one floor. They had a few like other game systems like Kill Team, the grand narrative stuff going on in smaller rooms on other floors. But there was a whole other like education convention going on above us, which was funny because the educators would come down and it was almost like a safari for them. So a couple of them I managed to, give them a little sales pitch as well. But they were all curious. They weren't judgy. So that was fun. But there is plenty of room for this event to grow. I think we can absolutely snowball the Underworld's numbers. And like I said, we're just scratching the surface of Underworld talent. So let's do it. Nothing's official on how the future qualifier events will operate or how the ticket system works. I did learn, and I don't know if this will change for next year, but I did learn that there was a difference in tickets. There were some qualifier events that had silver tickets and some that had gold tickets. Gold tickets meant that there was some portion of it that was paid for to get you there. And silver tickets were simply an invitation. So I don't know how that system's going to go. I think obviously they're going to look at how this one went and how they want to implement it for the next one. They wanted to make a conscious effort that the event hosted in the US did not just have a majority of US players at it. So international players, listen up, like they're going to be looking to get events out there, the recognition and qualifiers to get you guys over here because they want to have that representation. Like I think total out of all the players at World Championships, only about 30% were American, which I think is awesome that it was an actual international event.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Like, and you could see like France obviously had a big representation. Spain as well. It's pretty huge.
Oh yeah, we were right next to Kill Team, and there was so many Spaniards over there. Sylvester was our Spaniard, and it was great.
Yeah, and I think they had like almost 40 countries represented in total, so that was like really, really impressive. And in Underworlds we had 3 Americans, which I think is in line with the percentages that others had. We obviously had a slight overrepresentation of Canadians, but that's just because we win. We win down south.
Yep. You came down and you took them fair and square. We got to lock it down this year. We're going to make sure that we retain those.
We're going to try.
But what was it? They did, I think Mike had also said that eventually, if this just continues to grow and grow, like they really kind of see this as the Olympics of Warhammer. And the goal would be to eventually get it to where they could have one of these championships at an event or a destination outside the U.S. But right now, Atlanta is a massive international airline hub, and it makes it easiest for people to get to it.
That makes sense. It'd be cool. I'm excited that it feels like it's got momentum for more in future years.
I'm so buzzing.
You and we got a buzz about LVO because that is scary close. It seems like
months.
Months plural still. Yeah. At my painting rate, I am already behind in that case. So
I just got my base coats down on my warband.
All right. And I think I know which one it is. So we'll keep that secret, keep it safe.
It's not so secret, but yeah.
All right. We have a little bit of outro to do here. You know how we do these things. If you want to get in touch with us, you can catch us on a Discord. That's usually the best place to do so. You can send us an email, whatthehexcast@gmail.com. On the site formerly known as Twitter, we're at WTHcast. G is in the Discords as G.
Just G.
G, would you be willing to send a link to the deck you used? Could I share that in the show notes?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll send it. Also, it's I think on the repository of the BattleMallet. They got all the top 8 decks.
I thought I tried to skim through it and I must have blasted right past it. So, okay, cool. Well, then if that's the case, then we'll just link straight to that. We should also say thanks to the Mortal Realms. That's where all our content is hosted, themortalrealms.com, part of that greater network. All the shows there, Path to Story, Dog's War Cry, and the flagship podcast, or sometimes we just refer to it as a story phase because it's our narrative, AOS narrative one. Coming up, we're hoping we can cover Daggok Stab Lads, depending on how they release. Usually we see something pretty quick, like I said, after the preview, but we're not sure what the release date is. We're going to be getting hyped for LVO. Got to figure that out. And we'll do some little bit of recording in advance. We're going to try and give ourselves, if not a release schedule break, we'll try and record something that's a little time agnostic, so we can have a little downtime here for us as well. We have our outro segments. Brian, looks like you've got something holstered for Flavitex quiz.
I do. Do you have a recommended listening for us?
I do.
Okay, cool. So, all right. G, you ready?
I am.
All right. No hints for this one.
Oh boy.
Yep. So, I have survived pressure that would turn you inside out.
This obviously has got to be something from Siren Eye. Is it an upgrade?
It is.
Okay. What are the defensive upgrades, G? Because I think it's got to be one of those.
So you got Void Shield, which is -1 dice. You got Incredible Dexterity, which you get a guard token. I don't think it's this one. You got Gifts of the Depth, which is the reroll, defensive reroll.
That sounds okay. Yeah. All right, we got. Cool. Well done. Your recommended listening for this one is a tip of the hat to Siren Eye. It is The Sea, and that's by Sierra Farrell, and that's off her album. Well, she's only got the one full length that's for general release right now, but that's a long time coming. Hey, G, thanks a ton for being on. We really appreciate it. We hope to see you in person here next year in Atlanta. Maybe we can rep ourselves. So,
G, are you going to any other events this year?
I will go to a few. I'll go to Calgary for sure. I'm trying to get to Adepticon if things are lining up. And then for the rest, I'll see what pops. I am also in very advanced discussion to host an event in Ottawa.
Awesome.
Well done. That's what you love to hear.
If you get to make it out to Adepticon, reach out to us. We'll take care of you. And if you get that event going in Ottawa, let us know. We'll hype it up for you.
All right. Amazing.
Awesome.
All right. For What the Hex, I've been Davey.
I've been Brian.
And I've been G.
And
How do you find these things?
That's one I'm hoping to see her in Milwaukee next year. I like her a lot. She's pretty cool. Just different YouTube channels and all that sort of thing. Give me recommendations. I don't know. Not a very
total
interesting
music
answer.
guy, totally different than me.
Yeah, we just got our Spotify Wrapped, and it was fun to look through that with the kids. I think we were at 37,000 minutes listened or something like that.
Good Lord.
So, anyway,